morning to you and welcome to the SitRep for today. It's the 15th of February 2023. It is currently 2 minutes past 10 in the AM here on the Australian eastern seaboard. And it's daylight savings time, so you figure that out. I don't know. So if you're in Queensland, it's some other time. It's all just made up anyway. Welcome. Thanks for joining me on today's SitRep. For those who haven't joined before, SitRep is the situation report where I pour through news stories or little tidbits that have been sent to me or that I've come across in the media, quite often alternative media, and pull it apart and have a look at it and think about it from the perspective of prepping so we can keep ourselves more prepared, or as I like to say, the 3 R's. You know, there's 3 R's in classical education. There were never R's. One was like arithmetic or something. It was never an R. Writing. I can't remember what. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Only one of them was an R. Anyway, the 3 R's. The 3 R's of prepping. Reliance, as in self-reliance. Resilience, as in self-resilience, making yourself more resilient. And responsibility, as in self-responsibility, taking care of yourself and being responsible for your own actions, which is a oddly controversial thing to say nowadays. But anyway, there you go. I think that's what human beings should do, or should be aiming to do at least, in this day and age. Good morning to you, SpiceGale27 and Savage the Wild. Thanks for joining me on the live last night. Had a number of people message me saying that the recording of the live last night that I did with that Insta chick, with Lauren, all about the aliens and the balloons and such, that's going on at the moment, the recording was totally fucked. So I don't know what to say. Instagram just did me dirty there. Did me wrong. Not happy with that, but what can you do? But thanks for joining me on Instagram today. Thanks for joining me on YouTube for those who are jumping on the YouTube channel. And thank you very much if you're listening to this afterwards on the audio version podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Let's jump into it today. A number of stuff going on. Where am I going to start? Let's start with the XFiles one. I thought this was interesting. This coming out of the Wall Street Journal, reputable-ish? Definitely mainstream either. And the title is, As Mystery Objects Get Shot Down, US Sets Up New Task Force on UFOs. So I guess they've dusted off agents, Special Agent Mulder, Fox Mulder, and Scully, and the XFiles are reopened. US officials said they couldn't explain what 3 airborne objects shot down over the weekend were. So just the background on this, obviously if you haven't heard, they've been shooting down these objects, which are some they said that were cylindrical and car-shaped, or car-sized, I should say. Some were was flying around about to shoot down that hexagonal one, and you can hear the pilot saying it's not a balloon. Unconfirmed radio chatter. But anyway, the White House got questioned about it. They said they got questioned very directly. Is this extraterrestrial in nature? Is this, aliens? Originally, the first general said, look, I can't answer that. That's not up to me. It's up to the intelligence community to answer that. That set everyone off. The White House puppet came out, the press secretary came out and said it is definitely not extraterrestrial. But then when asked what it was, they've also come out and said it is definitely, probably, maybe not even Chinese spy balloons. So a lot of confusion over what this stuff is. But they're setting up this interagency task force, I guess. What are they calling it? Yeah, task force. It's going to be comprised of elements of the Pentagon, Federal Aviation Administration, Department of Homeland Security, and other government agencies. Just those other government agencies. I chuckle at that whenever, in my previous life in the military, or when I was teaching diplomats or anything like that, and in those sort of days, in those eras, whenever you see OGA, other government agency, there's other nicknames for it, but it's always the sneaky peeky, nice spy sort of stuff. So I thought it was funny that they just happen to write other government agencies there. So So could that be the CIA? Anyway, it's not a big deal. This isn't a huge thing. It's just a funny sort of thing that came up. And I want to lead with that one this morning. Let's jump into, by the way, I don't think it's aliens. Just if you didn't watch it last night, if you didn't watch the live last night, I think the likelihood of being aliens is pretty low. Let's jump into some real stuff now. Let's head over to the Russia-Ukraine area, part of the world. A lot of stuff coming out of Moldova. So I've got a source over there in that part of the world right now. So they're obviously got their eye on the situation, and they're quite plugged in, quite cluey. So this source has been sending me information. It's very interesting sort of stuff. The Moldova update, for those who don't know, Moldova has been in a bit of a sticky situation. Just the real crayon version of what's going on there. Moldova's worried about Russia moving in there and attacking or doing similar to what they did in Ukraine, softening the ground, creating unrest, moving in militarily. And Moldova's kind of waited up and said, hey, look, we can't fight that fight. So they're very rapidly trying to find friends, mainly Romania, kind of looking at reunification of some sort with Romania there. Pretty worried about what's going on. There has been a whole heap of protests and stuff that would be consistent with the Russian battle plan, I guess. Remembering, if you watched the live last night, I talked about how different war is nowadays, and that we don't categorize, or a lot of people don't categorize war correctly nowadays. So war includes social media. War includes riots and protests. The enemies that we've been seeing have been using these tactics, these softening sort of tactics, or soft war tactics. And that's what we're seeing right now in Moldova. So you could just look at it and go, one or two things is happening here. Moldova's worried about, the president's worried about, that's President Sandu, worried about losing power. And so cracking down, really, enforcing some more draconian type measures, I guess, or grabbing power in that sort of sense, using the fear as always. Or Russia is doing what Russia has proven to us that they do, and they are actually in there operating right now, which I think is probably the more likely of the two. Anyway, a lot of destabilization going on within this country at the moment, so they're a little on edge. This report, which I got from, I first saw it on Atlas News, and I haven't got the source of where they might have got it from. But during a press briefing on Monday, Moldovan President Maya Sandu accused Russia of planning a coup to overthrow the government and stop the country from joining the European Union, backing assertions made by Ukrainian intelligence last week. So if we look at this a little bit more objectively, take a step outside, as I like to do, and go, okay, well, why are people saying what they're saying? It behooves Ukraine greatly to drag others into this conflict, and that's what we see them doing over and over again. So that's what they're doing here. They're saying, hey, Moldova, you're about to be dragged into this. Russia, we've got solid intelligence. Russia is about to move on you, and they're going to plan a coup to take over your spot, President Sandu. Sorry. So that's the instigating thing that's actually happened there. Now, I haven't ordered my stories, so it's going to take me a second to find out the second part of this. But essentially, it has escalated. Here we go. Moldova update. Airspace has suddenly closed for security reasons. So that's happened in the past 24 hours. This follows the report of Russian coup plot. Basically shutting down their airspace. This is not, like, we might be seeing this more and more nowadays, but this is not a normal thing for countries to do, to shut down airspace. It's a huge thing for it to do. So when this sort of stuff happens, they're saying, hey, there's an imminent threat here, which the Moldovan president has obviously, she's thought, yeah, there is an imminent threat here. Another update here, Moldova officially blocks the coup participants' Serb proxies. According to the president, the planned the plan envisaged the involvement of some diversionists with military training camouflaged as civilians who will undertake violent attacks and actions on state buildings, including hostage taking. So the hostage taking, maybe, yeah, but everything that I said before that, the military, the diversionists who are military trained or even military personnel in civilian clothing, conducting destabilization events, destabilization tactics, conducting things like violent actions and attacks on state buildings. This is par for the course for Russia. We know Russia does this. It's just go look up little green men, Russian little green men, and you'll get a bit of a background on this, on how many times they've actually done this in the past. They insert their intelligence officers, their military personnel into a country in civilian clothing and get them to actually elicit violence within that area, softening the target. So, this is the latest news that we've got coming out here of Moldova, that they've actually blocked the coup attempt. It's always a hard one when I see this sort of stuff. It's akin to me to be like, maybe they did, maybe they 100% did, but it is akin to people saying like, "Oh, I'm glad I got that fifth shot when I got the big C because it saved my life because that's what they told me it did." I'm like, how do you know that? How do you know that fourth or fifth shot saved your life? It didn't. But that's the kind of same thinking. They're going, "Oh, we blocked this. We definitely stopped this coup from happening." I was like, "Well, did you?" I'm always very, very skeptical of this kind of information. But maybe they did. Maybe they did. Who knows? What else is happening in this area? This is quite a big one. Russia has begun deploying tactical nuclear weapon-armed vessels in the Baltic Sea for the first time in the last 30 years. This was released by Norwegian intelligence services. The key part of the nuclear potential is on the submarine and surface ships of the Northern Fleet. So, what we're seeing is that they're allegedly moving their ships and their submarines out in this northern area. So for those who don't understand where this is, geographically speaking, we're talking about the area that is the Baltics states, Finland, Sweden, Norway, what have we got it down there? Poland, Germany, and obviously right at the end of there, you've got Russia and one of their biggest ports there as well, being St. Petersburg. Somebody can correct me on that if that's wrong. But they're obviously pushing a lot of their ships into this northern area because just below that's where Ukraine is. Like I said, I think Russia's starting to look at the battle space now and going, "Yep, okay, Ukraine, cool." It's not in hand. I wouldn't say they've got it in hand, but they're already thinking the next 2 steps or 3 steps ahead now. So they're starting to maneuver in that way. Pretty interesting stuff that's happening in that area, if we're to believe the Norwegian intelligence service, at least. Romania. Mentioned Romania. That's right next to Ukraine as well. Some interesting stuff coming out of there as far as the UFOs go. UFOs in Romanian airspace. The air surveillance system of the Romanian Air Force detected on Tuesday around 12:30 a small air target with the characteristics similar to a meteorological balloon, which was traveling at an altitude of about 11,000 meters. So that's about 33 to 35,000 feet. So relatively lowish for a meteorological balloon, or for a balloon that was a spy balloon, if that's what people are thinking. This was in the southeastern part of Romania. Romania authorities applied all the standard procedures from the moment they detected it, and they sent 2 MiG-21 Lancer aircraft. Not sure if they shot it down though. So unknown what the resolution of that particular balloon was, if they blew it up or not. But yeah, that's pretty much it I've got coming out of that area at the moment. The only other big interesting piece of information, not well, kind of in this area, was the US released a bit of a memo to their citizens in Russia that they should leave immediately. They've done it before. This is a continuation of this sort of information. It's not like this is the first time they've said, "Hey, you should get out of Russia." They said this. They've been saying this consistently, pretty much since February last year. But it was interesting that this not only got re-upped, that they put this very dire warning. They were saying, "Hey, this is a place that you should not travel to." The designation, "Do not travel to Russia." Just so you can kind of wrap your head around this, the equivalent Australian designations come from Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, DFAT. Usually on Smart Traveller, you can go and look this up. So if you jump on smarttraveller.com.au, you can look at different countries and it'll give you a bit of a designation. And it'll be from, kind of like safe to travel to, maybe a bit not so safe to travel, reconsider your need to travel, to do not travel. So those two are probably they're arguably the two more serious ones that DFAT will put out. Do not travel and reconsider need to travel. So US is essentially putting out to their citizens that Russia is a do not travel destination. This is interesting in the context of what's actually happening. Why are they putting this out now? And again, what we're seeing, or what I'm seeing at least, Russian nuclear weapons starting to move around the battle space more widely. We know US, they tested their ICBM, they tested their Minuteman III missile very recently. Their yearly test, they do it every year. They didn't do it last year because of these tensions, and they felt that it wasn't a good idea. But they did do it within the last week. We know that they're upgrading very quickly their nuclear arsenal. So if you don't know, they had, I think it was maybe sometime in the 80s, 3,000 plus nuclear weapons, nuclear capable weapons. They've dwindled that down over the past couple of decades, or a few decades, to be sitting in hundreds. 300 to 500 is the best guess. I think the official number is like 358 or 7 or something like that. But official stuff aside, they're never going to say exactly how many they've got. But it's not like they pulled these other ones apart and turned it into dust and made it disappear. What they do is take them out of the weapons and kind of shelve them, pack them in grease, put them in a big crate, stick them in the same warehouse that the Ark of the Covenant is in somewhere, and they'll just sit there. Well, it takes time to then pull them out because they're still around. It's still there. They still have the capability, and refit that and update that as well. Plus the whole hypersonic missile race that they're in at the moment, where they quickly realize that they're outgunned by people like Russia on the hypersonic missile front. So US has been working hard at this, really upping their game. They're preparing for a nuclear war. And like I have said, or I said on the live last night, for those who didn't catch it, what is this whole balloon thing about? Why are they shooting it down? I said it's my take on it. There's a myriad of reasons, and I'm not saying I'm right, but this is just my take on it. What we're seeing here is either the US shooting down balloons that they've put up as a bit of a PR win, because they need the big ticks in the W column at the moment. That administration does, at least. They need to be seen as competent and what would you call it? Proactive in doing this now, because of that initial one that got caught over Montana, whereas a lot of people were like, you were a bit slow on this. So now they want to be seen as very proactive. So maybe they're just doing it. Or these are weather balloons, spy balloons, and or balloons with payloads, and they are shooting them down immediately, which tells me, the action then tells me, that the US is now standing on a different, war footing than it was before. And like I tried to explain very briefly last night on the live, this isn't like something they would advertise. They wouldn't come out and say, we are now on a different war footing, unless it benefited them. But for the main part, it probably wouldn't benefit them to do that right now. They would just start acting that way and not tell people. Because if you came out and told people that, hey, we've just changed from DEFCON 4 to DEFCON 2, nuclear war is imminent, your population would start acting in a very different way, and I would say a very chaotic and dangerous way, a way that the US government would not want them to act right now. So they're not going to advertise that fact. They're just going to start doing things. And one of those things that they would start doing is shooting down foreign or unknown objects as they see them, not trying to figure out what they are, not trying to figure out where they're from, not trying to figure out what they're doing. Just see it, shoot it. That's all there is to it. Figure it out later. Shoot first, ask questions later. So that's one of the things that I'm saying. So then coming back to this story here, the United States is urging its citizens to leave Russia immediately. Now I'm looking at that information slightly different because I'm seeing in the context of that. That's the lens that I'm looking at this through anyway. So anyway, feel free to argue with me if you don't agree with that. But this is what I'm trying to look at. Don't trust the government to announce what their plans are. That is kind of strategic warfare 101. Don't tell your enemy what you're doing. So whenever we see information that comes out in the mainstream media where it's like, hey, we're going to do this, I'm always like, bullshit. Why would you advertise that? Why would anyone advertise that? Point in case, Russia. Okay, Russia, right up until the point where they went into Ukraine, like vehemently argued that they were not invading Ukraine. They were not doing it. This was a military exercise. We are just doing an exercise with Belarus. This is nothing to be seen. And then all of a sudden they went, within a very short period of time, said, these guys are doing something illegally. These guys want independence. Yet we ratify that independence. We're coming in to help. Bang. And we're in. So yeah, governments would not come out and advertise what they're doing, but look at the actions. Point in case again, Russia. What were their actions telling us? Was it that build-up consistent with military exercises? No, it was far in excess of military exercise. So the actions were not lining up with what they were saying. Again, USA now, what are their actions? That's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to look at the actions, and then I can figure out what's actually happening at a higher level. How does this affect us? As preppers, probably the next question is, it should be obvious that this is pressing towards world war, which I think, as we go on day by day right now, is more and more of an inevitability. In my mind, at least, there's been some point in the not so distant past where we have actually flicked over from what I would call possibility to probability. That's just my sort of definitions of those words. We say, oh, what could happen? Could there be a zombie apocalypse? I'm like, well, it's possible. It's just not probable. But as more information comes out, that little meter ticks over, and we tick over from possibility to probability, where it's more likely to happen than not. And that's where I think we're at the moment. So that's a whole heap of doom and gloom for you this morning. You're welcome. But start thinking about this sort of stuff. Start thinking about, what happens in a wartime society, in a wartime economy, in a wartime, job market, in a wartime society that is involved in a world war. The only historical, information we have on this, I guess, is World War I, World War II, in kind of recent history, but it's not going to be like that. There's going to be similarities, but it's going to be different. But you can expect, in some, you can expect to be living with less. That's the key point that I want to get across here. That's where I think we're heading to. Be ready to live with less. Be ready to be more self-reliant, more resilient on your own two hands, on your own means. A little bit of a fire underneath you that I'm lighting this morning. Former Army Secretary from the US urges US to wake up and prepare for the worst against Chinese aggression. Should be pretty obvious, but there's a cadre or cadre, depending on where you're from in the world, but I say the word cadre, of people right now within the sort of US sphere that are screaming, jumping up and down that, hey, we are not ready. And I couldn't really agree more. We're not ready as a society. We're woefully soft and unprepared right now, and we are concentrating on other things. So I think this is good. This former Army Secretary Patrick Murphy, who's come out and sounding the alarm on this. All right, what else we got? Apologies, dog is barking in the background, if you can hear that. But I'm not going to go out and yell at her. She's part of my defense system. So this next little bit, this was all sent to me from my main source on Instagram. I'm just going to sum it up like this. There's a couple of different stories, but I'm not going to go into depth with them. All I'm going to say is the UK is on board with fighting China. All right. So the UK, I would argue, is one of the biggest pro-war advocates right now. When we're talking about the Ukraine-Russia war, they have been pushing very hard for it to increase and continue. And now they are jumping on the US coattails again with this Chinese thing. So what it looks like to me is in the back channels, somebody has got the official word from the US and said, hey, UK, here's the official word, spread it. And they are doing it. They are doing it 100%. This is very much akin to, when was it? Somebody can help me out here, but I'm thinking the invasion of Iraq, I'm thinking 2003, 2004. George W. Bush, Tony Blair, even our beloved leaders at that time were all about those WMDs. They were like, weapons of mass destruction, Saddam Hussein has them, weapons of mass destruction, we have to go get them, we've got that confirmed, everyone, let's go. And we jumped into another war, even though we were fighting one at the time, jumped into yet another war and went and fought the good fight, ousted Saddam Hussein and stopped those WMDs. However, turns out wasn't any WMDs, didn't find any. And when we look back on it now, we can actually see that there was none. Not only was there none, but they knew there was none. That our government lied to us. They lied to us. The propaganda machine got rolled out. Everyone jumped on board. Everyone had the key message points and everyone towed that line and said the right things, because everyone said those things. Everyone as in the leaders said those things. Everyone listening to that was like, well, they're all saying it. 7 out of 8 governments have said the same thing, so it must be true, right? It didn't matter that one thing was coming from one point, one source. So that's what we're seeing at the moment. This is all about China. This is all about balloons. The UK, the key point here, I'll read out some of these quotes. We were able to determine that China has a high altitude balloon program for intelligence collection that's connected to the People's Liberation Army. It was operating during the previous administration, but they did not detect it. We detected it. We tracked it, and we have carefully studied it to learn as much as we can. This coming out of the US, obviously, because they're talking about, they're like ragging on Trump, saying he didn't even know there's balloons then. He didn't even know. We found it, at least. So you can see how I might think that this whole thing is a PR program right now. Them trying to look like they're not the incompetent senile fools that they are. We know that these Chinese surveillance balloons have crossed over dozens of countries on multiple continents around the world, including some of our closest allies and partners, i.e. like the UK. So the UK's come out and said the government will do whatever it takes to keep the UK safe from spy balloons. Using words like quick response. We're going to track balloons. We're going to track balloons from hostile states. There's the key point. Hostile states. here's the change in propaganda that's happened in the past 24 hours. UK, and I'll just go through the news agencies that use the term hostile states, balloons, Chinese balloons, spy balloons, and UK's ability to knock them out of the sky. We've got the news agents coming out of UK. We have GB. Where are we? That's not it. That's not it. I've lost it. We've got GB. We've got Sky News. We've got the equivalent of CNN, and I have not got these here. And the Times was the other one. So you can see there just a series of different channels from the UK with the same mouthpiece. The hands of the US are quite firmly injected into the anus of the UK puppets and are talking in unison, pushing into this anti-China rhetoric. Not that I'm saying that they're wrong. I'm just saying, like, look at the propaganda. One of the first things you've got to do to legitimize a war within your own population is to make the population believe there is an enemy. There is a common enemy that we all must fight. And that's what they're doing at the moment. So this is more from the point of we're heading towards war. In case I haven't labored that point enough at the moment. All right, a couple other little tidbits of interest here. US, Philippines, there's a bit of toing and froing in Philippines because a Chinese military ship pointed a military-grade laser at a Philippine patrol vessel in the past 24 hours, I think. Past 2 days, maybe. And no, sorry, that was on the 14th of February that got released. So they pointed at that. Philippines is like, yo, WTF. And US has come in and said, yep, that's not good. And we just want to reaffirm that we will back up Philippines. So Philippines is one of those key US alliances, one of those allies. Philippines get attacked or anything happens to Philippines, US will come down. Akin to Japan, akin to Taiwan, allegedly. I'd like to see that proven. I mean, I wouldn't like to see that proven because that would mean World War III. But I'm dubious as to whether, if Taiwan was actually attacked, would US mobilize? Would US willing to go into World War III, or would they send out more sanctions? So yeah, interesting stuff there. Another little random thing. Ford in the US is to cut 3,800 workers in Europe. So, sorry, Ford coming out of the US is to cut the European manufacturing by 3,800 workers. They cited economic headwinds and increased competition in electronic vehicles, because we're looking around the Ford F-150 Lightning here is what they're kind of basing this on. The interesting thing that they didn't say, though, which I think is a glaring omission in this and kind of belies to the greater situation within Europe at the moment, is the cost of manufacturing within Europe. I think Europe's manufacturing base is, I don't think I can actually see Europe's manufacturing base dwindling before our very eyes right now. This is yet another blow, but they didn't want to blame it on electricity costs, on gas costs, on any of the costs. They just said economic headwinds. So it was interesting that they didn't mention that, because a number of other companies have, like BASF, one of the world's largest chemical company, cited that. They said, hey, we can't do this. Many of the aluminium smelters, for example, within Europe said, we can't afford to do this. Glass producers within Europe said, we can't afford to do this. Even food growing manufacturers or ones that are using systems that require gas have said we cannot afford to do this in the current energy climate that we have here, or the current energy economic climate that we have here in Europe right now. But Ford hasn't admitted that. But this is portends of doom within Europe, because, like I always try and explain this, that you can't just, it's not like, oh, yep, 3,800 workers are taking a day off. These people are being fired. These parts of manufacturing, like the factory, are being shut down. These industries are being curtailed and or shut down. And you can't just flick a switch and expect it all to come back when things are better. It will take time. So something like this, a sneeze at this end, is pneumonia at the other end. All right, these are the death rattles starting to curl out of Europe right now. And again, what I'm talking about here is a form of economic collapse, a financial downturn at best, but an economic collapse, and maybe even an entire financial system collapse. These are the signs that we're looking at. And right now, we're all staring up at the sky looking for balloons. We're all thinking about other things. The thing that's not getting talked about is what is happening to the economy right now. What is actually going on? Because there's not good things happening. And there are very, very few avenues, and they're becoming less and less every day, for the financial systems, the mechanisms to escape what is coming. So I hope you're saving your pennies out there. I hope you're turning it into solid commodities. Whatever that might look like. It might look like land. It might look like things, tools. It might look like paying down more of your debt if you're in bad debt. And I think there is a differentiation, bad debt and good debt. It might be putting it in gold and silver. It might be investing it in skills and knowledge in yourself. But whatever it is, I hope you're doing that right now, because I don't think that the future is going to be better economically. And just on that, that's what I think this is about. I don't think it'll be doom and gloom forever. I don't think we're going to a Mad Max world. I think we're going through a period where it'll be harder, if you will, a period of darkness. Now, that darkness, historically speaking, happens. It always happens. Collapses of civilization, mini collapses, whatever it is. There are periods of darknesses within communities. There are periods of darknesses within countries, within societies, within entire civilizations. That period of darkness, how long it lasts, depends on a few things. And how it comes back also depends on a few things. Were there people there who saw it coming and prepared themselves? And that's ideally what I like to think of myself as one of those people. And that's what I want you to also consider yourself as one of the protectors of the knowledge and skills, so that we might pass it down through this dark time. So that's something to think about today. All right, that's it for today, gang. Thank you very much for joining me as always. Hopefully there was some sort of information in there that was helpful. I appreciate your time that you want to give to me. Some random Aussie dude talking shit at you. But I hope you're all well, healthy, still working out, being fit, sorting out your mental space and making sure that you're in a good space, because a financial collapse is not going to magically fix depression or anger issues or anything else that you got going on in your head. Sort it out now. Whatever that looks like for you, try and be a more centered human being. But yeah, also adding into that, being a more fit and capable human being is definitely my two biggest recommendations. And then apart from that, also preparing yourself for all the survival needs that you might need, taking care of those sorts of things. Those pesky little things, like you've got to eat every now and then, you've got to drink clean water, you need a shelter from the elements, and you need to skill yourself. So thinking about those things and make sure you got them sorted. But as always, thank you very much. Thank you, Sigilia Wood. Appreciate that. You take care of yourself. And until next time, gang, Semper Paratus.